Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're getting into some really cool research about bees.
Yeah, this is fascinating stuff.
So get this, plants might be sending out signals, like electrical signals, that bees can sense.
Like a little plant billboard advertising, hey, best nectar right here.
It's crazy. I mean, we know bees use scent and color to find flowers, but this research from PLOS1 adds a whole other level of communication.
It really does.
To get us started, we've got a stack of research articles to dig through, some deep dives into the world of bees and flowers.
And don't forget that article on bee conservation.
Oh, right. Be neighborly. Sharing bees helps more farmers. Definitely want to touch on that. Okay, are you ready to get electrified?
I'm all charged up. Let's dive in.
All right. First things first. How did researchers even figure out that bees could sense these electrical fields around flowers?
Well, they got pretty creative. They used synthetic nectar in artificial flowers.
So they could control all the variables.
Exactly. They had to isolate the electrical signal so the scent and color wouldn't mess things up.
Clever. What did they find? Like, how did they know the bees were actually responding to those signals?
Okay, so they saw the bees actually preferred the flowers with a specific electrical charge. Like, they would go to those ones more often.
So it wasn't random. How'd they measure that, though?
They tracked changes in nectar volume to see which flowers the bees actually favored.
So the bees were going for the electric flowers and actually drinking the nectar. What does that tell us? About bees and plants, I mean.
Well, it could mean plants evolved a way to communicate with pollinators. That goes way beyond what we thought.
It makes sense, right? Attracting pollinators is like essential for plants to survive.
Exactly. So they got to stand out somehow in a whole field of flowers.
Whoa. It's like plants are having this whole electrical conversation we never knew about. Competing for attention? Like, mine's better. Come here, little bee.
It's a whole new world.
Mind blown. Okay, but zooming out for a second, why should we care about this? Like, why does it matter if bees can sense electrical signals?
Well, because bees pollinate a huge amount of the food we eat. It's crucial.
Right. No bees, no almonds, no apples, no coffee.
Exactly. And this research helps us understand how bees interact with plants on a deeper level, which can help with conservation efforts.
The more we know, the better we can protect them, right?
Exactly. That Bee Neighborly article we mentioned, it really highlights how important that is. Working together to protect bees, it benefits everyone.
This is all so fascinating. It's like we're uncovering a hidden language between plants and bees. Who knew plants were so high-tech? But before we get too far ahead, let's take a step back. Way back.
You talking about bee history?
Yeah. Bees have been around for a long time, right?
Oh, definitely. Millions of years. Their history is basically tied to flowering plants.
Whoa, so they were around even before.
Even before dinosaurs. Can you imagine?
No way. I always thought they came later.
Nope. We can trace them all the way back to the Cretaceous period, 70 to 100 million years ago.
Crazy. So, like, ancient bees buzzing around with T-Rex.
Exactly. It's amazing. And then after the dinosaurs, the bees that survived, they just kept diversifying, spreading from Africa to Europe, then to Asia.
Following the flowers as they spread across the globe.
Exactly. They needed each other to survive. And as the plants diversified, so did the bees. They had to adapt to different environments, you know?
This makes me wonder, are all bees the same? Or, like, what makes them so diverse?
That's a great question. It leads us into some pretty amazing variations within the bee world.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
So did you know there are over 20,000 known species of bees? And they don't all live the same way. Different nesting habits, different social structures, even their diets are different.
Really? Diets? I thought they all buzzed around collecting pollen and making honey.
That's what we typically think of, right? But there are some fascinating exceptions. Like, there's this bee called a vulture bee. And get this, it feeds on, well, carrion.
On eating meat. That's a little morbid for a bee, isn't it?
It might sound strange, but yeah. They belong to the genus Trigona. And instead of collecting pollen, they collect bits of dead animals.
Whoa. And they turn that into honey.
Well, a honey-like substance, yeah.
That's wild. Are there any other bee surprises I should know about?
Yeah, there are some that collect oil from plants instead of nectar.
Oil. What do they do with that?
They mix it with pollen to feed their larvae.
Wow. It's incredible how many different kinds of bees there are out there. And we thought we knew them.
Right. They've adapted to all sorts of different niches.
This is amazing. We've gone from electric flowers to meat-eating bees. I'm learning so much.
There's still so much more to explore.
I can't wait.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about those meat-eating bees.
Right, the vulture bees. Crazy stuff. But I'm ready to get back to the research, if you are.
Absolutely. Let's get back to those bee gut bacteria from that PLOS1 research. Remember how we talked about the 3 specific bacteria that seem to deter bees from the nectar?
Oh, yeah. Azea stilbis, Erwinia tasmaniensis, and Lactobacillus cunkii. Even though those bacteria live in the bee gut, they actually made the nectar less appealing to the
It
bees.
was really interesting, yeah. It wasn't just the bacteria being there. It was the changes they caused in the nectar's chemistry that made the difference.
Right. The bacteria changed the pH, made it more acidic,
Uh,
and the Azea stilbis.
that one increased the glucose and fructose levels, too.
Wow. But wait. If those bacteria live naturally in the bee gut, why would they make the nectar less appealing? Seems counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? It just shows how complex these microbial interactions can be. One theory is that those bacteria, when they're in the nectar, they might be producing compounds that signal to the bees that it's not good for them.
So the bacteria are basically acting as a warning sign, like, hey, bee, this stuff's no good.
Exactly. It might be harmful. Find your nectar elsewhere. Something like that.
Wow. So the bees have learned to avoid nectar that might hurt them, even if they're hungry. It's amazing how tiny bacteria can have such a big impact.
They really do. Which brings up a really important question. If those bacteria are stopping bees from going to certain flowers, what happens to pollination?
Right, because if the bees don't go to the flowers,
The plants don't get pollinated, and then they don't produce the fruits and seeds that we need for food, for the ecosystem, for everything.
exactly. This research is really showing how everything's connected.
It is. Even microscopic organisms can have a huge impact on the entire ecosystem.
It's like a domino effect. Changes in the microbial world can affect the bees, then the plants, then, well, us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why research like this is so important. The more we understand these relationships, the better we can protect the bees and the whole ecosystem.
It makes you really think about the bees and all the other tiny creatures out there that keep things going. We take them for granted, but they're so important.
They really are. But let's lighten things up for a minute. Did you know that not all bees are social creatures? Like honeybees, I mean.
Wait, really? There are different types of bee social structures.
There are. You have your solitary bees, where each female bee makes her own nest. And then you have your social bees, like honeybees and bumblebees, that live in colonies.
Huh, I never knew that. So, like, what are the advantages of each lifestyle?
Well, solitary bees are very efficient pollinators. They often focus on specific types of flowers. Plus, they don't have to worry about maintaining a big colony. All their energy goes to foraging and making more bees.
So they're like the independent contractors of the bee world, each one with their own specialty.
Yeah, you could say that. But the social bees, they have their advantages too.
Like what?
Well, their social structure lets them manage resources really well. They can store huge amounts of honey and pollen, which is, of course, why humans have always loved them.
Right. The honey we eat is all thanks to their teamwork.
Exactly. They communicate, they work together, they store up food. That's how they've been able to thrive in so many different environments.
It's really incredible how evolution has come up with so many different kinds of bees, and each one has its own strategy for survival.
And each one plays a vital role in keeping its ecosystem balanced and healthy.
Speaking of balance, how can we use all this research to help the bees? Seems like knowing about the electrical signals and those gut bacteria could be really helpful.
It definitely could. If we know what attracts bees to certain flowers and what makes them avoid others, we can protect them better. Like, maybe there are farming practices or things in the environment that are causing those bacteria to grow. If we know that, we can try to change things.
It's all about understanding those delicate connections in nature and working with them, not against them.
Exactly. And speaking of fascinating connections, there's one we haven't talked about yet: bees and fungi, specifically mycelium.
Mycelium. Isn't that the part of the fungus that grows underground? Like the root system.
Yeah, it's the network of threads that make up the fungus. And it turns out mycelium is actually really important for bee health, especially stingless bees.
Wait, so it's like the bacteria and the fungi are both working together inside the bee.
It's a real team effort. So mycelium produces these compounds called echesteroids. They're natural steroids that help bees develop, strengthen their immune systems, and even improve their performance.
So like a natural energy drink for bees, helping them fly farther, pollinate more, and fight off diseases.
It's a
Amazing.
perfect example of symbiosis. Both the bees and the mycelium benefit from this relationship.
It's amazing how these completely different organisms are all connected, and they depend on each other. Makes you wonder what other secrets are out there in the natural world.
There are endless mysteries, that's for sure.
You
It
know?
just goes to show that we're all part of a much bigger system. And the more we understand those connections, the better off we'll all be.
Well, this deep dive has been incredible. Electrical signals, bee gut bacteria, mycelium. It's like a whole new world has opened up.
And we've only just scratched the surface?
I can't wait to learn more. Welcome back. We've been on quite a journey exploring the world of bees.
We have, from those electrical signals to their gut bacteria. And who could forget those vulture bees?
Oh yeah, definitely not forgetting those. But there's got to be even more to discover, right? Beyond all that science-y stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about pollination and how important bees are for our food supply, but their impact goes way beyond that, don't you think?
Totally. Like bees have been a source of inspiration for so long. For artists, writers, even engineers.
It's true. Their social structures, their work ethic, even the way they fly, it's all sparked so much creativity and innovation.
Think about honeycombs, that hexagonal shape.
Oh, yeah. Architects and designers have been fascinated by that for ages. So strong and efficient, it's like the perfect example of natural design.
Nature knows best, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just the practical stuff. Bees have popped up in mythology and folklore for centuries, across all sorts of cultures, too.
That's right. They've been seen as symbols of industry, community, even divinity. Like, the ancient Egyptians believed bees were created from the tears of Ra, the sun god.
Whoa, that's kind of beautiful, actually. It really shows how much we've always revered bees.
We have. But it's easy to forget that, with all the challenges they're facing these days.
You mean like habitat loss and pesticides?
Exactly. And climate change is a huge factor, too. All of that's putting a serious strain on their populations.
It's a tough reminder that we really need to pay attention to the impact we're having on the planet and on these creatures who do so much for us.
It all circles back to why research and conservation are so important. The more we understand about bees, the better we can protect them.
Like maybe that research on the electrical signals will lead to new ways to help bees, maybe even attract them to crops or help support wild bee populations.
It's an exciting thought, right? Like we're learning to speak their language.
So we can create a world where bees can thrive, and hopefully we can thrive along with them.
That's the goal.
Well, I've got to say, this deep dive has been a total eye-opener. I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for bees.
I'm glad to hear it. It's been great exploring all this with you.
And to our listeners out there, I hope this has given you a new perspective on these amazing little creatures. The next time you see a bee buzzing around, remember, it's more than just an insect. It's a vital part of our world.
Keep those brains buzzing.
And until next time, stay curious.